forward to metagrammar, also known as formal geometry. What is metagrammar? Language is universal and intelligible, grammar is particular and perceptible. We have two, and only two, types of identity, and this is how we express those identities in common grammar. This is one method of expressing the difference between a class and the members of that class. Metagrammar is the grammar from which all grammars are derived. What that is, you should know by now unless you are a bit slow. You have direct experience with metagrammar. It is what Plato called dialectic, or speech by twos, and which we call today binary, as exampled globally by the computer. All information is derived from binary recursion. All information is processed in binary, which should be no surprise because the definition of a thing is binary. Turning a light switch on and off is a binary behavior which produces a binary response. Binary is part of the answer. It is that part which is called the correlative, container, limit, shape, form, etc. Now, we need the relative, the behavior which makes a particular grammar, a metagrammar. Or again, binary is the intelligible part, and we all know how many grammarians got that part. I know of only two sources, Plato and a much older source. What has become known as the Bible. The history of binary being the foundation of grammar, Plato states in Philebus that binary was preserved in Egyptian mythology, as its age runs deep in human evolution. He did not invent it. We now need the relative part, the actual difference which makes a grammar functional, for it is by grammar we manage our behavior. Every system of grammar is composed of two parts, symbol sets for the correlative, and methods of recursively applying them, the relative. We are then effectively multiplying 2 times 2 in order to produce a set of grammars. You already know what they are, for they have names which have come down to us in history: common grammar, arithmetic, algebra and geometry. Dividing by binary, we have 3 logical, which means the symbol sets are constructed relatively and each is used metaphorically or literally, and we have 1 analogical because it puts a 1-to-1 correspondence between the intelligible parts of a binary with the product of the grammar, which is geometry. Geometry is wholly metaphorical, its naming convention is wholly intelligible, its product wholly perceptible. The result of a geometric expression is exact. The output of a geometric figure, called a conclusion in logic, is concurrent with the input, that is, there is no relative difference between the product and the 2 elements of a thing. Geometry, like every grammar, is known today as only the product of alliterates, just like every other system of grammar. If any grammar were a literate product today, it would show the binary pairing everyone is familiar with by the computer today, and as Plato tried to inform his readers. Formal geometry, what I have encyclopedic works on, is our metagrammar which can proof every grammar. Even though many so-called scholars are being supported by illiterate people to find metagrammar, I do not take them seriously. The first comedy ever written about simple-minded grammarians was done by Plato, but dimwits did not get the joke. Cratylus. Nothing becomes known as a really good joke, until people are smart enough to get it. So, if so-called grammarians are too stupid to get the first part, then they are too stupid to comprehend any part of grammar. Nobody with the least bit of intelligence goes looking for the intelligible part of a grammar in dirt. Formal geometry is not what is traditionally called Euclidean geometry. Euclidean geometry is one that sports a fundamental contradiction, that it is only performed with a straightedge and compass. This contradiction would make Euclidean geometry a sport rather than a functional grammar. Why is straightedge and compass a contradiction? It is because no system of grammar is defined by the tools by which it is expressed, but by binary recursion, the intelligible, not the perceptible. What happens when you define a grammar by tools? You take that practice out of the realm of formal grammar, which is always expressed as a method of utilizing binary recursion. By now you should know, all information is an expression of binary recursion, not by any particular media or tools used to effect it. It is to be noted, that nowhere in Euclid's Elements is such a restriction, and the tools to write geometry were very primitive at that time. For example, no tool existed to make even an accurate ellipse until very recently. The restriction upon geometry appears to be traditional, not professional. The elements of Euclid are then classifiable as informal geometry. Formal geometry is the metagrammar of our grammar matrix. Exactly why is something you have to learn by experience, but a listing is. Of the four members of our grammar matrix, common grammar, arithmetic, algebra and geometry, the first three are logical and geometry is analogical. This means that geometry is written by putting a one-to-one correspondence between the motion of what is written and the two defining elements of a thing. Geometry is wholly metaphorical. In geometry, you are interactive with the data. The result for a geometrical expression is always exact. In geometry, the output conclusion is concurrent with the input, that is, there is no processing time, that is, there is no relative difference between the data and the geometric expression. And lastly, as language is universal and intelligible, while grammar is particular and perceptible, the evolution of grammar as a tool does not evolve from the universal to the particular by our intelligence. Our intelligence must evolve before we become aware of metagrammar. You cannot find it in man's past, it is in man's future. This fact is even stated, metaphorically, in the Judeo-Christian scripture. However, in order to successfully study formal geometry, one has to be capable of understanding. Most people are better with memory of particulars than abstracting the universal. We have two parts of speech, neither one can be the other. A noun can never be a verb, and as Plato noted, the intelligible is not perceptible, nor is the perceptible intelligible. The universal is not particular, a point is that which has no part. The cup is not the coffee in the cup, the map is not the territory, etc. So, a small test. Literacy test. Givens. God created the universe. God created all good and all evil. What then is God? Is God a universal or a particular? Is God intelligible or perceptible? As Plato explained, the only power a mind can comprehend is its own function, which is information processing, or speech. In order to comprehend the universe, it is comprehended as grammar, that is, as being spoken. Beyond that no mind can go. We can only grasp any and everything, by the definition of a thing, some material within some limits, or again, a relative constrained by correlatives. The binary of speech also means the verb, the material difference, is a given, while the parsing of information, the parsing of the verb, is by the noun as applied. We parse what is given to produce the products we require to manage the environment. To have dominion over the environment means exactly the same thing as to know judgment, or again, to be literate.
False words are not only evil in themselves, but they infect the mind with evil. Phaedo by Plato,